Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about a website where you can find a smokin' deal on headphones right now. The website is decibel.tech, and it's essentially an audio solutions store. They have everything there. I have a pair of their Bluetooth headphones, and I love these things. They are so comfortable and lightweight. I'm telling you, the Bluetooth headphones that I have right now are legit. They feel so good on my head. I've worn them for hours and hours while editing. Super comfortable. They go all the way over the ears for great sound dampening, great reproduction of bass and highs and mids. I just couldn't be happier. I think I'm going on maybe 5 or 6 hours of battery life without having to recharge them. It's just how it is. These headphones are legit, and you're not going to find a better deal out there. So check out decibel.tech for free shipping.
This is the Lazy Teacher Podcast.
Welcome back to the Lazy Teacher Podcast. My name is Brian Pulowski. This is episode 18, Special Education. My guest today is Katie Curtis. She's a special ed teacher in Redlands, California. Wow, does Katie have tons of energy and passion for education and kids. I'm telling you, she could go on and on about her love for teaching and working with kids. It was inspiring to sit down with her. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. So without further ado, Katie Curtis. We stopped clustering this year, I think we stopped clustering. Like we used to have gate cluster and we used to have SEI. Mm-hmm. SEI. What did you call it?
SAI.
SAI. What's the difference?
I don't know. People still call it RSP or anything else.
I still
Whatever
call
they
it
want to
RSP.
call it is fine by me.
Do you get to pick what class you teach or?
Okay, so the way we do it, we've been trying to push towards more inclusion just to keep the kids in there with their peers and with grade level curriculum. A few years ago, I tried it out with a couple of the teachers who had wanted to try it, just kind of going in and doing lessons in class. And then over the years, it's kind of just we've gotten better and better at it. So all of my 4th and 5th, I push in and we co-teach together. And then the lower grades, I pull out. And I still do like small group work in my room.
So you're an RSP teacher?
Yes.
Okay, so you service kids. You don't have your own classroom?
I have a caseload.
A caseload. Mm-hmm. Do you have a room that kids would come
have
to?
My own classroom, but it's smaller than a regular classroom. Like my room actually shares a wall with the principal's office and our conference room.
I think it's probably similar to what we have. The other classrooms, they're like buildings, and then at the end, it's like almost like an end cap double closet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar to that.
Like the speech rooms in there.
Yes, it's similar to the speech room.
Okay.
I think mine's a little bigger than the speech room.
So what do I see that you're posting? That's your room or other people's rooms?
Both.
Both.
So I service kids technically I can do TK through 5th.
Okay.
So I've had kids in TK before. So 4th and 5th, when I teach math, I'm in their classroom. So the teacher and we prep once a week. I go in during their prep and we plan out a week of math for like rotations. Sometimes she teaches, sometimes I teach, sometimes we split them. Sometimes we do 4 groups. I mean, it's different all the time.
Okay.
So, and then some of them are in my room. Like the littler kids I pull them out because a lot of that is if they're not quite there and ready to kind of engage with the lesson, then I feel like it's kind of going against, like if I would try to go in to help them, they're not even at that point where they can follow along with that instruction.
Yeah,
you know, sure. So I'm doing a lot more like remedial work with them.
So, and that's all pull out, right?
So those are the ones that I pull out.
Up to what grade?
You know, it just kind of depends. Like we've even been playing around with the idea of maybe doing push in with 3rd grade next year, maybe just for math and not language arts. It kind of just depends year to year, like on my kids. Like if they have the skills that they'd benefit from push in, then I could do it. So I don't know. I'm just super flexible. That was one of the hard parts of going from gen ed to now being in special ed. I mean,
you have to be super flexible.
So flexible every day. And it's like, oh, we got to keep them today for this assembly and stuff gets pushed back. And I don't know. I've learned that I just have to kind of go with the flow. You know, I was very much like, this is the plan. This is what we're doing every day. And if I have 2 kids gone in a group of 4, I'm not going to start a new lesson with those 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I don't know. It's super different. It's a whole different world.
Yeah. You got to change it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's super hard. I hadn't even considered that. If you have something planned out for 4 students, if 2 of them are gone, you're not going to do it, right? So what do you do? Just review?
A lot of times I'll go back and do things that are specific to those kids' goals. Just give them extra work with something that maybe they lack in as compared to like the other kids.
Is there like a bad thing about saying special ed? I mean, should you be saying RSP or does it matter? Like, is it insulting?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I also feel like, students who have speech goals, that's considered special ed. They're getting a specialized education. Even GATE can be considered a specialized academic instruction because we have like a teacher that runs GATE classes after school. I kind of see it as we're just giving each kid what they need.
Do you feel like there's like a bunch of loops to get kids through this process? Like I'm a teacher and I go, okay, I think this student might benefit from really having an individualized education plan. Like
Right.
I think that's going to help them out.
Right.
I feel as a teacher, there's like so many hoops you got to jump through just
Yeah.
to even get them qualified for services.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I don't know. I can understand both sides because before this, I did teach gen ed. So I see that it's like, this kid needs help. I need to do something. But now being in special ed, I see it from like the psychologist point of view where
Okay. And
I don't
what's
know.
that? Because I hate that.
I know. There's certain categories that kids can qualify for special education, and it's just the way the law is written that they have to meet certain criteria. And it's frustrating because a lot of times some of the lower grades, you have to show a certain point gap in their learning to say that there's an actual like a processing disorder. So like auditory processing or visual processing. And if the gap isn't big enough, they're not going to qualify at that time just based on scores. So I think that's where it gets hard because the gen ed teachers are like, this kid needs help. Obviously they're behind in reading or math or whatever. But I mean, if they're not low enough, basically, with the discrepancy of their scores, then they don't fall under that category to qualify.
Is that district by district? For example, I think, I'm so ignorant to this, I feel like our district is it 2 grade levels?
I don't know if that's like a rule. Mm-hmm. It's more of like that point gap is kind of what that shows, is about 2 grade levels. But that's most of the time what I've seen, that's for like a specific learning disability. So there's other categories you can qualify under, but that's the most common that I see, at least in like I do mild mod. So that's the most common category they qualify under.
Is for what?
Specific learning disability.
Oh, a specific one.
Yeah. Okay. So SLD would be what it's like listed on the IEP as.
Okay. And then is there like a range of what that could be?
Uh-huh.
Like, so ADD or whatever?
So ADD, that would actually fall under other health impairment because it's a medical diagnosis.
Okay.
So that's like one of the other 13 categories.
So then what's an example of a SLD that wouldn't be medical?
Okay, so and for a specific learning disability, if you had, say, like auditory processing, where it doesn't necessarily mean you can't hear. It means I hear everything fine, but the way I process the information that I hear, something's getting in the way between what I can achieve and how I'm performing in the classroom.
Interesting. That's not medical?
No.
Really?
That's just considered a learning disability. The medical side, the health impairment would be like the ADHD or anything that's actually diagnosed by a doctor.
So chemical imbalance might be the wrong word, but does it have anything to do with that? Like it just seems like so I hear great, but I can't process it at the same speed as another student. That seems like something medical, but that's not?
It's just kind of the way you process that type of information, I guess. Because you could see, like, I have some learners that they might have a processing disorder that's auditory, but visually, if they see it, they get it right away. Like, they know where to file it in their brain. They know how to pull it back out. It's just, they need different, I guess, kind of like being a different learner, like doing things kinesthetic or doing things visually or auditory. It's kind of like that. Like, they're going to learn better in a different way. And when it's presented this way, it's something's blocking it.
Okay. And you don't diagnose it though, just a counselor does, right?
I do not. A psychologist. They're tested by a psychologist. So I actually don't see students until they're referred for testing. And then if they do qualify, that's when I start working with students. So for me, it's hard because I feel like I'm kind of in the middle sometimes. So gen ed teachers will ask me about certain things and I'll try to give strategies, but I don't even work with the kids until they have an IEP.
Is that a legal issue, or your caseload's so big that you just don't have the time to even do that?
Well, we have intervention teachers at our school also, so they kind of are used in the in-between. So students who don't have an IEP but might be struggling and might need a little bit of help, we have intervention teachers that work with them also. So they're kind of the middle.
So they don't have a classroom. Like their specific job is to be intervention and help out?
Yes,
Oh,
although they
wow.
do have classrooms.
But they don't have their own set of students.
No.
Okay.
No. So they're similar to what I do, I guess.
That's kind of neat. We don't
It
have
is.
that.
It is. I love it. And like you said about that, I don't work with any of those students. When I do push in, I'm working with gen ed students as well. So there might be kids in there that need help at that time. So I don't know. I really like it because when I go into the classroom to see my kids, say they're really rocking this math chapter and we're in the middle of measuring angles, and some of my kids are just rocking it, but some other students who maybe are really good at calculations are struggling a little bit more. So then I can kind of shift who I help. And then some of my students, the ones that are doing well, I kind of give them a little more freedom because that's a goal. I want to get them back in just being in the regular class on their own and teach them strategies so that they can be successful without help.
You brought up a good point. I think a lot of parents have wondered that. So when you come into a classroom to help out, let's say you have 4 students that you're helping in that class. If they're doing good, like you said, you'll offer support to other students also?
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. I mean, a lot of it, we try to do it where you wouldn't even necessarily know who had an IEP in the classroom. We're kind of, especially with the teachers I'm teaching with now, we plan in a way that, we're just trying to break our groups up into the smallest teacher-student ratio so that we have small groups that we're working with so we can really target those kids and see who needs more help, and we can kind of reteach. And with some of the kids that maybe need to move on a little further, we can plan something a little more challenging. So it's nice to be able to have that, I guess, 2 teachers in there and it's just another person to go to with help.
That's great.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's beneficial and we've seen a lot of growth with it. So, and the kids like being in there. They want to be around their friends, and as they get older, I feel like they notice more. I don't want to get pulled out. I don't want to go somewhere else. And a lot of our middle schools, the middle school we feed into does a lot of inclusion. So we kind of tried to set it up like that so that we're kind of giving them a look at what the setup's going to look like in middle school to see if are they going to be able to be successful in there, or are they really going to need more support and remediated work.
Yeah, of course. You're getting them ready for middle school.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. But you would say that you don't think it works like that with the younger kids.
It could. It definitely could. I've done push-in with kindergarten before where I go in and I just kind of work with them at their center work because we're working on the same skills. I think it just depends. Sometimes if they're so far behind that they're really not even taking in what the teacher's presenting in class and I need to go back and teach some of those foundational skills, then I think sometimes it's more beneficial. Pull them out, let's kind of give you what you need and then slowly work our way back in.
For sure, yeah.
But it totally depends. I feel like every year could be completely different just depending on the needs of the kids. And that's really what it's for,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Having an IEP is your individual needs. So
that's kind of, so do you have to travel around with gear to all these classrooms, or do they keep stuff in the classroom for you?
Both, I guess. When I plan with 4th and 5th, a lot of times we worked it out where they had their planning on the same day. So I go back to back and plan with them. So sometimes I bring down a bunch of stuff that's for a lesson, but for the most part, we're using the manipulatives or the tools that they have in class anyways.
So you don't even need to bring anything?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Only if it's something special that I prepped or an activity that I'm bringing stuff to do in the classroom.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I usually I'm using the stuff that they have in class.
Have you ever heard of a learning center?
I have. We had one when I taught in San Bernardino, but that's when I was on the gen ed side of it, so I didn't really know too much about it.
I don't know what it is. I think our district uses that. I almost feel like we have a learning center, or it's called a learning center, but I don't know if that's just the name they give it for where the RSP teacher just brings the students.
Yeah.
Or if there's like something specific happening that's different than, say, your double closet, so to speak. You know what I mean?
And it could be. I mean, I guess you could just name my room a learning center.
Well, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it's different. And I mean, school to school, it's different too. Not everybody pushes in. I know that other teachers in our district don't, but some do. I don't know. It's weird that it's kind of from site to site.
How often do students have the opportunity to exit out of the special ed program?
So once you qualify, you are tested by a psychologist every 3 years. So you, at every try, you're tested, and then to see if you still qualify for services.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So 3 times a year.
Every 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You said try. I'm thinking, every trimester.
No. So we hold an annual meeting every year to kind of talk about goals, how they're doing, are they appropriate, are they meeting kind of the benchmarks we're setting? And then every 3 years, they're retested to see if they still qualify. And then during that time is kind of when you talk about, do they need more support? Would a different setting be better? Or that's when we look at like exiting students.
At the annual or at the every
At
3
a try.
years? At the try.
Yeah.
Okay. So student goes in first grade, they're not going to get reassessed for their needs till 4th grade?
Right. I mean, a full battery of assessments. So every year you meet and you talk about services and adjust stuff. But you can meet at any time. Parents can always call a meeting. It's their right. We've done tries early where we think like, okay, this kid maybe does need to go back, and we've held assessments early just to kind of see. So I don't know. It totally depends because every kid's so different.
How does it transition from elementary to middle school? Like, do you guys have to meet with those counselors and teachers as well?
Actually, one of the cool things when I first started at the school I'm at, the principal that was there at the time got me a sub for a day so I could go sit in the middle school classes to see how they're run.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah,
Very
because
cool.
when I first got there, parents would ask me questions about 6th grade, and I would say, well, I assume they do this. And after a couple months, I thought, I shouldn't be assuming what they're doing. Like, I need to know what they're doing.
So did you go into gen ed classes or did you go into a special ed?
All of them.
RSP?
I sat in, a period that was just a gen ed class, one that's like a co-teaching class, like what we do. One that's more of a separate class that's just the special ed teacher and the aide, and it's a lot smaller group to kind of see. And then what happens at the end of the year is we get scheduling cards from the middle school, and we recommend what classes would be appropriate for them. So we kind of talk about that once we meet before, at the end of the 5th grade year.
All right.
To say hey, I think this would be beneficial, and we kind of go over certain classes and where they need support. But as far as I know, the middle school is very flexible about it too. So if they see, man, this kid just needs more help, they can always move them. And the other way around too. If they're rocking it, they can kind of
for sure.
give them less support.
And this is all mild, moderate, right? Would severe be a completely different category in special ed?
So my credential is in mild, moderate, and then there's a moderate, severe, and then there's also severe, profound.
So run me through what mild, moderate would just be like maybe auditory type thing like you had mentioned.
Okay, so at our school we have 2 mild, moderate teachers. So I'm one of them, and the RSP setting, I can see kids up to 49% of their school day. So they need to be able to function over half of their school day in gen ed on their own. If they need more support, if they need 50% or more, we have a teacher that has an all-day class, but we're both mild, moderate. So if they needed more support than that, say they needed an aide with them, or they were significantly behind grade level and they needed all-day help, then you could do a mod severe class, which we don't have on our campus, but in our district, we have other schools that offer that.
Yeah, it's offered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does every school have what your school has? Like a mild, moderate with 2 teachers, 1 teacher that specializes in the 49%ers or lower?
It depends on schools. I think it just depends on the numbers. So some schools have a K2 that's the all day. We don't have a K2 at our campus. We have a 3-5. So we have some students from other schools that get bused there. because they are like around our area.
So students that need the mild, moderate all day, but their local school or whatever doesn't offer it, so they come bust into your school for
Right.
it. Okay.
Right. So if their home school doesn't offer it, then they offer transportation to a nearby school that does have
Would
it.
that be the same for the K2 kids that need an all day?
Yeah. So kids from our school, obviously our home school doesn't have that on our campus because we don't have that many students. So they would get bused to a nearby school if they needed that level of support.
So there's mild, moderate. The next one would be severe after moderate?
Mild, moderate, and then moderate, severe, and then severe, profound.
I'm not that familiar with it, but I've heard an acronym of, I think it's SDC, Special Day Class.
Special Day Class.
I was at a school that had an SDC class, and it was more of autistic children, if I remember correctly. Would that be moderate, severe?
That would totally just depend.
Oh, God.
I mean, because then there's, like, if it is on the spectrum, there's students that are in gen ed with just a little bit of support, or there's students that do need a severe class. Our mild to mod class that's all day is considered SDC, or that's what we refer to it as, a special day class, because it's all day.
Okay, so is maybe is SDC, is that the term for kids that are in all day special ed?
That's what we refer to it as.
All
yes.
right.
So it is a special day class. They're not in a gen ed teacher's class. Like their home teacher is that teacher. And then they mainstream with general education classes for like art and PE and field trips and things like that.
Okay, got it. So SDC doesn't even refer specifically to their level of special ed.
Right.
It could be mild, moderate. It could be moderate, severe. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Depends. See, it's a totally different world.
So you guys have an SDC class for 3rd through 5th grade.
Yes.
But not K2.
Correct. I know.
There's a lot.
I know. It's so different. When I first went into it, I did not realize that how different it is from kind of the gen ed world.
How do parents that have special ed children, like how do they even stay on top of this?
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard for teachers to understand. I mean, especially with all the terms and the acronyms and this. And sometimes I feel so bad at IEP meetings. Sometimes we're just throwing out these acronyms and I'm sure the parents are like, what are they talking about? But we're so used to talking in those terms that we kind of have to like catch ourselves to explain things a little better.
Who typically would do that? You, the psychologist?
All of us.
All of you.
Me, psychologist, principal.
Because it kind of seems like you said, you're kind of the middle person. You're the point of contact. I mean, that's who the student sees daily or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So do you even get a chance to build up rapport with these parents?
Actually, I feel like I do. Definitely. I mean, I have like an open door policy. I have parents coming by all the time asking for resources, or I give them stuff that we use in class to take home and use at home. And the cool part is when I'm working with these students until they're either exited or they go to middle school. So some of these kids I've had since kindergarten, and I see them year after year.
I thought you were
K through 5.
Oh, you're K5.
I see everybody. Anybody who has 49% or less of their school day with services.
So what's this other teacher do? She's just in the SDC class?
The other...
You said there's 2 RSP teachers at your school?
She just runs a class. I mean, it would be like she's next door and her classroom's in there. She just has... It's like she's a 3-grade combo.
Got it, but she won't service any of the kindergarten, 2nd graders. That's all you. Mm-hmm. All right. This is very confusing.
I think it's just different the way school set it up, I guess. Because I know that... I mean, people in other districts, totally different the way they run things. So
I think we have a K2 RSP teacher and a 3-5 RSP teacher.
Okay. So they split it up by grade level.
Because I think it is split up by grades at our school.
Yeah, yeah. And there's some schools that do that, I think, in our district, just depending on the number of students. So, but that's the cool part, because I get to see these kids year after year. So I feel like I do get to build like good relationships with the parents because I see them more often.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's nice because like when the kids come back for the next grade, I don't ever do the whole beginning of the year and routines. Like they already know me. I know where they're at and we kind of just pick up and run with it.
That's so good for the students.
Yeah. And then as new kids qualify, The other ones are just willing. They're just so excited to like teach them, this is where we keep this and this is how we do this. And I kind of let them teach it.
So is there something a parent could do that would help out in these IEP meetings to be more beneficial? Like, is there something they could prep more? Should they,
A lot of time, I feel like it's a lot of information when we're going over kind of reports. A lot of times I just try to tell them like, look, this is what I see that they're good at and what they need help with. And this is what we're going to try to do. I try to ask for input and do you see the same stuff at home, or what things have you done at home that works? Because sometimes there's just those little things that parents know, oh, hey, if you do this, that's what's going to motivate them to want to get their work done, or they really like this certain game. So we could use that as kind of like an incentive. So I don't know. I feel like it's totally a team thing. And
so it's similar to parent conference, like like I tell my own parents, like come to the conference with questions and suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's really what it is a conference on how they're doing, where we plan on going, and how we're going to get them there.
And if a parent's frustrated, that wouldn't be your fault, right? Frustrated with like their IEP, because you're not necessarily creating, you're just kind of helping it out, right? Facilitating it.
I write a lot of the IEP, but I definitely try to. If they have suggestions, there's been times where we kind of change goals in the meeting. I propose what I think would be beneficial and where I think we can get them. But we've changed stuff in the middle of a meeting. We have it right there. We have our computers open so that we can it's supposed to be a document that's created together. So if there's suggestions, we always we try to make it work.
Oh, I
for
see.
Everyone.
So it's not necessarily, you're not really just telling the parent, this is how it's going to be.
No.
There's options. It's dialogue. A parent can say, no, I don't like that. And it
they
gets
have
changed.
to agree to everything. And if they don't, then we don't go forward with it. So parents have the ed rights in the end. So we basically just try to build something that is going to be beneficial for everyone, I guess.
Would you ever go up to severe?
I really like where I am now. I think if I were to ever change, I would maybe go back to gen ed. I really enjoy it, but I enjoy both. That's why I think Push-In is really cool, because I kind of get the gen ed side too. I get to see like some of the other things they're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's pros and cons to both. There's some stuff I miss about it, but then there's stuff that I get to do in small group that I probably wouldn't have the time or resources to do with a full class of 35 kids at once. So.
That does make sense on why you would pull a kid out if they really they're just lost in class and you need to just get that small group instruction to help bring them up. Otherwise, I think Push-In kind of seems like it would be the right way to do it. Like you said, these kids notice, I think. I remember being in speech. I remember telling my mom when I was in speech that kids were teasing me. So it's there. They notice.
Yeah, they don't want to, I have to leave. And especially as they get older, that's kind of why we wanted to, that was another reason to try it out and get them ready for middle school, because that's what the model looks like. They do a lot of co-teaching. Mm-hmm. So kind of just tried it out, and it got better and better each year. So run with it till it doesn't work anymore, I guess.
You're awesome, Katie. I do appreciate your time and coming in today.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting about special ed. I know you talk about it every day, but
I do.
I don't know anything about it. And I guarantee there's people that are listening that are clueless to the process.
Well, it's definitely a lot. It was a big learning curve. It was a lot of stuff. And I'm still learning stuff. Every year I feel like I learn more about it and more about how to help or how to do something. So it's an ongoing thing.
And are you cool with picking up new followers on Instagram from this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's kind of another thing. I felt like if anyone can take something that they've seen in my room and use it and their kids learn from it, pay it forward type thing.
Solid. Solid.
So
lay it out there. What's your Instagram handle?
At Elementary Einsteins. K through 5 stuff. Just trying to keep it fun in the classroom.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah? Cool.
Instagram
Thank
thing,
you.
So. Yeah, for sure. Well, right on. We'll have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Sweetness. Thanks for checking into the Lazy Teacher Podcast. I always appreciate all your support. You can reach out to me anytime. It's Brian at TheLazyTeacherPodcast.com. Very excited about some upcoming episodes, including one with Class Dojo, as well as talking English language learners with Adriana Vasquez. You're not going to want to miss these episodes, so make sure you're hitting subscribe on your favorite podcast app, as well as following me on social media at TheLazyTeacherPodcast. Well, that's it for the show. Hope you got what you came for. See ya!